If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, it's Jen Foster here with the Elite Publishing Podcast, and I am really excited to interview the best-selling author Holly Stokes with the Miracle Code. And Holly is an expert. She's an NLP expert and hypnotist with the Brain Trainer. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, we had you on our podcast on our very first season. Before it was Elite Podcast, it was Hot Chicks Write Hot Books podcast.
That's right. It's been a while. It's been a few years.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about why you wanted to write the Miracle Code. The Miracle Code. Say it right.
Yeah. Well, it was really my passion project, kind of my life's work. I was diagnosed in 2006 with air quotes incurable autoimmune condition. And through applying tools, principles of natural health, meditation, NLP, hypnosis, I really kind of dove in and untangled the layers of stress from past trauma and layers of stress from cultural programming to create an inner environment of clarity and harmony in my inner world where the outer body could then heal. So it's this passion project. I just really wanted to share the inspiration that we can heal. And I believe we're meant to heal. Whatever big, insurmountable challenge that is in front of you, that's actually your stepping stone to your next level of you. And if we can just start asking questions. What else is possible here? What can I do? And just take those little steps along the way. We can overcome the impossible.
So I love that you said that, because I think a lot of times we underestimate the power of our minds and underestimate the power of our physical bodies, because a lot of people just think, oh, I got diagnosed with this, so this is what I am and this is what I'm going to be forever, right? Instead of actually asking those questions, like you just said, like what is possible, right?
Yes. And I just want to highlight that you opened up this door. So if I run too long here, it's your fault. No. But the power of the mind, I think it is a hugely untapped resource. And science has actually known about the placebo effect for 300 years, which is that just the belief that we're taking medication, even though it has no physical effect, it's just a sugar pill, but just taking it with the belief that we're taking something, the body will respond, physically respond. And here's the thing, I just did this presentation last night. It's not just in medications and pills, it's also in surgeries. Placebo surgeries. A doctor, Bruce Mosley out of Texas, wanted to run a research trial about which part of his knee surgery was helping people the most. He enlisted colleagues and they said, well, you can't just compare one to the other. You have to have a placebo group. So they did part 1 surgery group, part 2 surgery group, and the placebo group. And the results, guess what happened? The placebo group fared just as well as all of the other people in the groups.
Wow. So they basically said they were going to give them knee surgery, but then they didn't really give them knee surgery, but they told them they did. So they thought they did, and they healed just as well as the people who had surgery.
Exactly. So
wow.
They made an incision and they took them through the whole process. So they had like going in on the gurney into the surgical room, but they did no surgical intervention. This is actually a documentary film, which I have a bunch of resources that I like giving away to people. So if you go to my website, you can sign in there and it'll give you access to all of this. There's real science behind it. And I came from the psychology world. And often when we
Mm-hmm.
talked about the placebo effect, it was very dismissive. Oh, that's just
Mm-hmm.
the placebo effect. Oh, it's a trick of your mind, or the results are going to go away. But what
Mm-hmm.
this particular experiment or research showed was it's not just a trick of the mind. There's something very real happening. They followed up with these participants 2 years and 5 years, and they still had the same result as if they had gone through a surgery. So
Wow.
this is why I totally agree that our minds are this vast, untapped resource that
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of leaving to default. We're
Mm-hmm.
letting it be controlled by media or social media. We're letting it be bantied about by the news or other people's opinions. Even though we love people, sometimes they're not giving us the best opinions. So
Right.
this is really, and this is actually what the book is really about. I talk about the
Yeah.
placebo effect and some of the research that's behind it, but then it's also a practical book. Like, here's my process, and here's how you can apply the principle that I discovered or that I really learned and incorporated. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's show your book cover here.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
let's tell everyone about how you came up with the idea for the book cover, or even the title as well. Because I know a lot of people struggle with coming up with the title. Like, how do I come up with the right title? And what do I want to put in the subtitle? So, tell us, how did you decide on a lotus flower?
Yeah. So the title for me, I kind of had fantasies of writing a book. I just, from the work that I've been doing as an NLP coach, hypnotherapist over the last 20, almost 20 years now, I just really recognize the power of healing these internal beliefs, the blocks, triggers, traumas that our unconscious mind is carrying, even if we're not consciously aware of them. And I've seen amazing results with clients along the way. So, because I knew of kind of this power, like this idea kind of formed like miracles in every day, or everyday
Mhm.
miracles was kind of one of the working titles. But then it came up like miracle code, and it just like things just kind of lined up. So I felt
Mhm.
like the title actually showed up before I had the script and everything ready.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of the inspiration to keep going. Okay, so,
Mhm.
and then as far as putting it together, of course, you gave me some wonderful help and background skill with like fonts and layout and everything. And as we were scanning through some of the pictures, there was that one lotus flower that just popped up and stuck out for me. And it references, I don't know if I actually have this in my book or not, but I had done a meditation kind of about, oh, why has my life been so hard? I've gone through trauma, blah, 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 kind of pity party, right? And
Mhm. We all do that, I think. We have our little
good
pity
to know
party
I'm
sometimes,
not the only
right?
one.
Why me?
And
Yeah.
I had this message come through, and I don't know if I'd seen it somewhere, or if it just
Mhm.
organically popped through. It said, the lotus blooms above the muddy water.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a metaphoric message. Like, we are meant to rise above the mud. We are meant to rise
Mhm.
above the old wounds of the past and the hurts of the
Mhm.
past. And that's where we bloom.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I love your cover. I think it's beautiful. And I
Thank
love
you.
the color purple that you chose. I think it's really important to have the contrast and the pop, and I think it really does pop. I think it looks really good.
It does. Thank you so much. You were so helpful in
Oh
guiding
yeah,
me
of
through
course.
that process.
Well, tell
Just
us, like, why did you decide to self-publish over traditional
yes.
publishing?
Yes. I think there's a lot of hype or excitement with going with a big publisher, which can be great, don't get me wrong. But then there's also a lot of restrictions to it. The world of book publishing, I've been kind of following this for many years now. I've published my first book in 2010. And at one point, it really made sense because they had a lot more marketing behind, the big publishers. They'd set up book fairs and book tours and all of that. But the landscape has really changed. So now the big publishers, what they're really looking for is, I've gone through, book coaching programs and stuff. What they're really looking for is they want you to have your own following. And then what happens, you're giving the rights of the book over to the publisher, and they're basically getting all of the benefit of your social media. Now, don't get me wrong, it can be good, for some people or some situations to go with the big publishers, but it's also very competitive. And it can take a long time to get your manuscript out. And once you sign over the rights, I've heard of friends and people that they signed over the rights to the big publisher, and then the publisher decided not to print anymore. So now they didn't have access to their book, and they had to end up buying it back if they wanted to continue running workshops or reprinting. They had to buy it back from the publisher, often at a profit to the publisher. So it just didn't make sense. And for most people that really want to get a message out there quickly and have control over the rights and how it's used, and really give you that flexibility to do with it what you want to do, it totally makes sense to go with self-publishing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell us how you wrote the book. And I know a lot of people have say, oh, I always want to write a book, but I just don't have the discipline, or I don't know how to start, or I don't type well. Or how did you write your book, and how did you block your time to make sure you got it done?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would say I really struggled for a while. The first book that I wrote was really fairly easy because it was basically, I teach classes and workshops, and it was really kind of outlining a workshop. How would I take people through? But this book was such a challenge because it was my own story. And so in order to go into the hurt places of the past, I had to kind of step out of my positive mindset of where I am now and go back into the struggle of it. And so I would go, lock myself in the room, and my tears, cry for a little bit, come out like try to struggle through that process. So it took me a lot longer to put this together and write it. But what really made a difference for me, especially when I had deadlines coming up, and it was looking like, okay, I got to get this done, and there's no one coming to save me. What I did is, because sometimes, we all have busy lives and things take priority. Like, I work one-on-one with clients, I'm teaching classes and trainings. And so I really had to just give myself small chunks that I created consistently. So I started with 30-minute blocks. And I would I have like a little paper calendar. All my appointments I keep online, but I love the paper calendar because I can write my daily to-dos in it. And I'm a writer anyway. So I would put little marks, 30 minutes and 30 minutes, and I would check them off. Just 30 minutes a day. The first thing I did when I woke up, got my check mark, tried to get another one in. And I have a whole list. Like, it took so many hours. I wish that I had tracked all of the hours that I have put into this book. So writing a book, it can take like 50 to 100 hours to put it together. And it was a challenge as well because it was kind of convoluted. It was my story, but 10 years of my story. So then trying to decide, well, what were kind of these turning points along the way? What makes sense to share versus, what's going to really add to the story versus what is different. And I kind of had something click for me when I realized, oh, it's body, mind, spirit. So this isn't the structure. It doesn't show up in the table of contents, but as a theme, it definitely shows up. I started with working on physical body, and then into the mind, and then into levels of spirit and intuition and higher awarenesses. So that's kind of how it came together. But yeah, it was a struggle.
That's awesome.
It's a feat to write a book. Or
Well, I like how you blocked off the time, and I liked how you were accountable to yourself and did the check marks. I know that it is rewarding to do a check mark. Let's talk about how you did the pre-order, because I think this is a strategy that a lot of people don't know about, or they know about, but they don't know for sure. But I think the pre-order also helped you to get your book done, because I know you had a little bit of editing you had to finish. And so let's talk about the pre-order. So what was the event that you had where you wanted to sell your book?
Yeah. So I was scheduled to speak at the largest hypnosis convention in the world, conference in Las Vegas. So I knew I was committed to being there. And we had set up the pre-order, and I'm like, okay, what if I just launch the book at this huge hypnosis conference? There's like more than 700 hypnotists from all over the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got a booth so that people could find me and have a place and have marketing so that it was available. And it was fantastic. I had a great time speaking. I love connecting with people anyway. But I had so many people stop by, and we just did that, get it today, book
QR
launch.
code.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that QR code. And had bunches of people that because they were one-to-one and in person, I think it made a bigger difference,
Mm-hmm.
rather than trying to gain traction on social media, which I did, point people on social media to it as well, but really having those personal connections and being part of my community was just such an enriching and powerful experience to do the book
Mm-hmm.
launch. So that
Yeah,
worked.
I wanted to congratulate you because you did such a great job, getting the pre-order and being willing to do something different and then having the QR code and having your booth and really just going all out because that's what it really takes to hit bestseller. And you did, you hit international best-selling author on
I know.
Amazon. And that was with the pre-order, right? So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
sold enough books, you sold enough books at your conference with the people that you talked to and a few mentions online, a little bit of Facebook you did, I saw, and a couple Instagram posts. But a lot of it was the conference and the event, and having that available for them to buy and at a discount, right, at a good price,
Yeah.
helped you hit that bestseller status. And I love that you even got international. You had Canada and the US. And so that
Yeah.
was really great.
Yeah, that did work out really well. And even though it was pre-order, so people knew that they had to wait for it, but just that having that supportive community and those connections, it made a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then the accountability part was we had to have, or you had to have the book finished and submitted by a certain day, right? Amazon
Yes.
says if you have the pre-order and you have select a release date, then you have to have the book done. So getting the book edited and making sure it was all good and then getting it formatted in time, I think that went pretty smooth because you hit your deadlines, which is really
Yeah.
important.
And I
That's
was quite knuckling it, every waking moment. I gotta do that book. So
Yeah, that was great. So congratulations on that.
thank
I
you.
think that turned out really well. Yeah. Well, I wanted to also ask you on the paperback, how many pages in the layout, like what did you decide on the layout? How did you know how you wanted it to look? Did you just want to go similar to what you did before or
I think there were some kind of design questions along the way.
Mhm.
I can't remember right now exactly what the layout is, but just kind of went with what was basic, easy to read, chapter headings. I'm happy with the layout. I think I didn't know that there were so many choices of
Yeah.
what to do or how to do that layout, but I'm happy with how it turned out. It looks really good. Kind of
Awesome. What
looking
would
for
you go
clean,
ahead?
and clarity.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
clean and clear is always good.
yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to a new author who's procrastinating or hasn't started yet? What would you give them? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, break it down into small chunks. What really, got my butt in gear was to just attack it with those small chunks and be consistent. So instead of, because before I had like, okay, I can work on it Tuesday and Thursday. But then when I started doing small chunks, just starting, when I would get into it, then of course you get into flow and it goes easier. So I remember like even when the alarm went up in 30 minutes, I almost automatically dismissed the alarm and I keep working for another 30 minutes or an hour. So
Mhm.
just having a way to get started. And then it's kind of too a head game about sharing your story. And that's my field, even though I know this, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the more we can manage what's going on in our mind about what it means or what we're sharing and what that means. You just got to make your purpose bigger than your mental clutter.
Yeah,
So,
I
and
like
I think
that.
that's what really kept me going, just thinking about there are ways to heal, and not just there are ways to take charge of your health that really aren't promoted. I mean, one of the things I remember asking my rheumatologist, well, what should I eat? And she's a specialist that deals with inflammation. She's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Eat whatever you want. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
Right.
you don't know that some foods process in a inflammatory pathway and some process in a reducing
Mhm.
inflammatory. So it's like, coming from that place of diagnosis, I think many times I felt almost hopeless along the way. But as I found little stepping stones that I could do, that I could take charge of, that would make an improvement, that was huge. That
Mhm.
gave me things, physical steps that I could do to improve my situation. And that's really the power of what I wanted to share with people. Wherever you are, however stuck you feel, taking it a step at a time and just finding that next step and that next step.
Mhm.
So, back to your question, I think reminding ourselves of the purpose of the book. What is the hope that you want to inspire for other people? What is that ripple effect that you want it to be in the world? How do you want
Mhm.
to improve others' lives with your story by sharing where you've been? So,
Yeah, that's great.
thank you.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about, I know you self-published, but I want to talk about the team behind putting your book together because I think a lot of people always try and do it themselves. So
Yeah.
I think it's important. So did you like working with me and help, you're getting the help that you had with the typesetting and the book cover?
You were fantastic. Actually, like, again, I talk about kind of white knuckling it along the way. It just took so much stress and worry off my mind to have you as a team partner in putting together things like the cover. I probably would have spent so long on that. But you're just like, do this, we'll do this, and here, let's go, get some options here. And it just really came together. So your expertise really shone through. And that
Okay.
was so helpful. And then also, you coordinated all of these other people, like the formatter, and I was working with a kind of a book coach editor, and it really made a difference to have other people, to have a team, to
Mm-hmm.
have that, oh, okay, they got this.
Yeah.
I'm not the crazy person trying to put
Yeah.
it all together.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the book coach editor because I think a lot of times people try and write their book and edit it themselves and say, oh, I put it in Grammarly, so I'm fine. Or I had my sister who's a teacher read it, so I'm fine. But it's like, yeah, if she's an English teacher, then sure, right? But if her expertise is in editing things and actually doing line edit and knowing Chicago manual style or whatever. So I love that you had a book coach and you had an editor to help you because I think a lot of times we try and take on everything ourselves and it doesn't get done correctly. So, way to
Yeah.
go getting your team.
Well,
I like
thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you for
And
being a
what,
part of that. I mean, it
yeah,
was just such a lifesaver.
yeah. Well, one last question I want to ask you is because of your book, what has happened so far? So, like, what has surprised you most since your book has been published that has happened?
Well, one is just relief. Like, whoo,
Mm-hmm.
I got that off the shelf and into reality. Yep, check that one off. There is a process on the back end. So I'm trying to keep top of mind, like continue focusing on the book. There's little things like every day, okay, what do I need to focus on with the book? So I got orders. People are now asking for the books, which is amazing. I've had people tell me, hey, you could do like a book signing party and bring your books. And so finding power partners. So I kind of see it as a process along the way. And I would say like the biggest thing is just feeling like I did my part. I did this vision of getting the message out. And I'm excited to connect with other people that are also out there having that same message, that there is more to who we are than a biological mass, that our mind, body, spirit system, we can embrace our wholeness and our potential and move forward in a more clear, more empowered way. So yeah, it's still in process. And so I'm excited for that, and definitely had lots of congratulations. The other thing for me to show up with this book, even though it was a pre-order, I think I got extra traction at the expo. And from that as well, I was able to launch my mastermind group, Intuition Mastery Mastermind. So that is getting traction and taking headway. And I just love talking about, tools and skills that really empower people. So yeah, just keep the ball rolling.
Awesome. Well, tell us, here's your book. Tell us where they can go to get your book, The Miracle Code.
Great. So if you go to my website, thebraintrainerllc.com/book, I have other resources, including 16 keys to self-healing, plus 2 of the links for these placebo documentaries, the Placebo Effect. This is real research done by scientists, real studies. It illustrates the power of the mind, and it's just amazing. It blew me away. And I hope that all of those resources really inspire others too.
Awesome. Well, we'll put those links up in the show notes so people can go get your book and also to check out your website and hire you for other services. And I do know that you're going to be distributing your book everywhere books are sold. So right now it's on Amazon, but it should be in Barnes & Noble within a week or two and other places as well.
Yay.
Awesome.
Thank you
thanks,
so
Holly,
much
for being on the show.
Thank you.
Everyone, this was Elite Publishing Podcast. We hope you subscribe and share and follow. We want you to share it with your friends and those who you think that the Miracle Code could help them and they can read that book. We're happy that you are here today and that you've listened to the podcast. Please leave us a review as well, and we'll talk to you next time. Go and write.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.